Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I want to talk about a fascinating topic that's been discussed in philosophy, psychology and even spiritual practices for centuries: the ego dissolution. The idea of letting go of the ego may sound abstract or intimidating, but it's actually something that can offer us incredible insights about who we really are and how we experience the world. Today, I'll break down what ego dissolution really means, why some people actively seek it, and how it can change our perspective on life. What is an ego dissolution? Ego dissolution is a state where our casual sense of self, our ego, fades away and we experience a connection to something larger than ourselves. The ego is essentially our sense of I or me, that part of us, the labels that categorize and separates us from others. It's the voice in our head that says, "This is who I am," and it helps us navigate the world by defining our likes, dislikes, and identity. Ego dissolution happens when the sense of self softens or even disappears, leaving us with a feeling of unity, clarity, and sometimes peace. So why do people seek for ego dissolution? For many, the ego can feel restrictive. Our egos are deeply tied to our fears, insecurity, and attachment. We tend to think of ourselves in terms of our achievement, our possession, of our social status, but this sense of self can become a source of anxiety and unhappiness, especially if we get caught by in comparison, judgment, and self-criticism. Ego dissolution allows people to step beyond this limited perspective and experience life in a more open and interconnected way. Studies in psychology and neuroscience have shown that ego dissolution can lead to profound feelings of contentment, empathy, and freedom from rigid thinking patterns. Researchers at Imperial College London found that ego dissolution is linked to a sense of oneness with others and the world, which may explain why it's often associated with feelings of peace and transcendence. In recent years, neuroscientists have begun studying ego dissolution using brain imaging and even psychedelic to explore how it affects the mind. What they found is that during ego dissolution, the brain default mode network, DMN, the part of the brain that is responsible for self-referential thoughts, become less active. When the DMN quiets down, people report feeling of unity, reduced self-focus, and sense of flow, or being fully immersed in the present moment. This research suggests that ego is, in a way, a mental construct that can be quite down, allowing other parts of the brain to connect and interact more freely. Many public figures have spoken about experience with ego dissolution, often through meditation, spiritual practices, or even psychedelic. Jim Carrey, for example, has openly discussed his own exploration of ego dissolution, describing how he came to realize that we are not the avatars that we create. He found that letting go of this self-image allowed him to experience life with more freedom and compassion. Similarly, authors like Eckhart Tolle have written about transcending the ego as a pathway to inner peace and spiritual awakening. Here's a powerful quote from the Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield. "When we let go of who we think we are, we can become who we truly are." This reminds us that ego dissolution isn't about losing ourselves, but about discovering a deeper and more authentic sense of being. Some practical approaches to experiencing ego dissolution. So, how we can experience a taste of ego dissolution in our daily lives? One approach is through mindfulness and meditation. Meditation, especially practices like mindfulness and loving kindness, helps us observe our thoughts without becoming attached to them. As we learn to watch our thoughts with distance, the ego begins to loosen its grip and we can experience moments of pure awareness. Another powerful tool is practicing selflessness. Acts of kindness, compassion, and empathy naturally shift our focus away from ourselves and toward others. When we focus on helping others, we momentarily forget about our needs, desire, and judgment. This can create a sense of connectedness and fulfillment that bring us closer to ego dissolution. Being in nature can also facilitate a similar experience. Spending time in a vast natural setting like a forest, mountain, or ocean often reminds us of our small place in the universe, dissolving our ego-driven sense of importance. Nature as a way of humbling us and putting things into perspective, encouraging us to let go of the self-centered concerns. Lastly, creative activity like painting, playing music, or writing can also lead to ego dissolution. When we are fully absorbed in a creative flow, we lose track of time and even our sense of self. This flow state, as described by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, is a form of ego dissolution that feels natural and fulfilling. If you're curious about exploring this further, I recommend The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It delves into the concept of transcending the ego and living in the present, which is essential for experiencing a deeper sense of connection and inner peace. In closing, ego dissolution can be a powerful experience that opens us up to a new way of being. It allows us to see beyond the labels, roles, and judgment that usually shape our lives. And while we may not live in a constant state of ego dissolution, learning to let go of our self-centered concern from time to time can lead to a richer and more meaningful life. As the philosopher Alan Watts said, "You are not a stranger here. The whole universe is your home." So take a moment to let go of who you think you are and discover the vastness of who you truly are.